This week, my guest expert is Scott Baggett, a partner at digital boutique Bad Assembly, who's going to share with us his badass work and talk about what it takes to do amazing creative work and whether you should specialize or be a jack of all trades. Stick around. Welcome to episode numero 12. I am your host, Jose Caballero, the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Visionary of digital agency The Group. Every week, you ask us business, creative, tech, and marketing questions, and myself and our guest experts answer your web design questions. 5 ways to reach out to us. You can ask live via Ustream at ustream.tv/thisweekin. You can ask live also via YouTube at youtube.com/thisweekin. Also, you can ask me questions on Twitter with the hashtag TWI Web Design. You can tweet me directly or tweet me at Jose Caballero. And please, please, please subscribe to our iTunes iTunes feed. And if you'd like to show us some love, rate the show, leave us some comments, and help us out with that. I'd like to welcome back Ari, who's going to be joining us today to talk with Scott, since you're an awesome expert.
Great to
be
here.
Just to do a little quick introduction of Scott, he's a furiously driven digital artist. The boutique that you founded, Bad Assembly, is pretty amazing. You landed your first web design job at the age of 15. Right. Jesus Christ, that's pretty young. And you haven't stopped since. And you moved up from junior designer, working at smaller shops, to director position at some of the big agencies. So you have the entire career arc that someone can do. And in 2006, you branched out and co-founded Bad Assembly Inc. With some badass partners. And I'll stop saying that because it's kind of corny. It's an award-winning digital agency. I respect the work you guys do, and that's why you're on here. Thanks to Julie, who also introduced us. And you guys do everything from 3D to Flash to motion, sound design. It's a pretty amazing breadth of work.
We do a lot.
Welcome.
Thanks. Good to be here.
So I want to get right into it today, and in a minute get into the dialogue about and start showing your work. One of the things that our guests like to see, that our audience likes to see, is not only the examples of your work, but also how you got to where you are and the career path. And one of the things that, for me personally, it's always very fascinating is the challenges of whether or not you specialize or whether you have a broader practice. So we're going to really talk about that. Ari, how are you doing?
Good, man. Good to be here again.
Very well received series, the last 3 shows.
That's great.
I'm really excited, and
let's continue.
We're going to continue that.
Continue on.
So going back to that first question, Scott, I want to start out with the basic question of how you got started. Talk to me about that.
Well, essentially got started probably like you guys. Got a computer when I was a kid. Well, had access to a computer when I was a kid. Always liked to draw, make stuff. As soon as I got a computer, I sort of left, I think, the pencil behind. Really got into 3D early. I had some programming classes in high school, even though they weren't very good, but I had access to Unix and learning all of that stuff. And so essentially, I realized my passion at 12 or 13, and just.
So you started pretty young.
Yeah, I started really young.
We talked about this yesterday, in our conversation. One of the things that a lot of us have in common is that at a very early age, we had access to computers. Not so much myself, but 15 is fairly young. And I know you mentioned to me that your parents were a bit like, whoa.
Right. Well,
is this guy gonna? What are you gonna?
All my parents saw was their kid sitting at their computer all day long, which is not what I would want for my kid. I mean, they didn't know what I was doing, and I wasn't telling them necessarily what I was doing. So, I ran my own BBS when I was a kid, which is super nerdy, but it was sort of pre-internet. I had a computer and a modem, like a 2800 baud.
Holy mother, Jesus!
Right. It was. People would call my computer, and I would have art. I was into the whole ANSI art scene, so I would have all these art packs they could download, and it was maybe 5 people a month called.
But, so they're doing call. It was basically calls.
They would call my house, and my computer would connect.
And
serve up some really lame.
This is really
interaction.
Pre-internet.
Super pre-internet.
Yeah. So and if I can ask your age, you're in your mid-30s now. You're 33, early 30s. So this is in the 80s.
Right. I guess 90s.
90s.
Probably.
Yeah.
Real early 90s.
Okay. Yeah. And and this is controversial, and I don't want to highlight it per se, but you didn't go to college.
I didn't. Yeah. Is that controversial? I didn't go to college.
In this day and age?
In this day and age,
you know what? I didn't go to college. I barely made it through high school because I was so, I mean, I was really working already in web stuff, and so it was hard for me to go in there and listen to them talk to me about geometry, even because I was into it, I liked it, but it's just the way my brain is wired is not for classrooms. It's just not. I would have squandered $100,000 if I had gone to an art school. It would have been terrible, So
yeah, thanks for making me feel like an asshole. Yeah.
You're not alone. There's lots of people with college debt.
But no, let's talk about that very specifically, because I'm not offended per se, but so how many of you out there, have to make the decision whether you pay $100,000 plus actually to go to a school like Art Center here in Pasadena, or Otis in Playa Vista, or in the West Side. LA has 3 schools. Cal Arts up in the where the heck is Cal Arts? In Santa Clarita. Almost.
I have no idea.
Valencia. You can also go to other schools like UCLA, etc. That's the gamut, I think.
Yeah.
And you will spend a lot of money. I still owe Mercedes-Benz amount, and I graduated 16 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow. So I should have gotten a Mercedes.
I got lucky. I mean, I think my parents. I got, I guess, accepted. I don't even know, to Art Institute. I think they accept everybody, to be honest with you. But so that's where I was going to go.
Don't knock yourself. Don't knock yourself.
I think they accept you if you have the money to go. I think that's how it works.
They check your bank account.
I don't know how it works now, but I'm pretty sure that's how it worked then. And, it would have been nice. I'm sure. Like I do enjoy spending time with other people that are interested in the creative. Obviously, it's nice to learn near people who are also really passionate. However, I was just so singularly focused on 3D and music and all the other stuff that I had access to. I didn't need. Now I go to college every day. I subscribe to all the big tutorial sites. I watch all of them, just like everyone else should be doing. Just like the newest people, I sit and watch everything. I love
Which ones?
Stuff.
What tutorial sites you work?
Grayscale Gorilla for 3D stuff.
Say that. Say the URL.
GrayscaleGorilla.com. He's a creative director. I think he used to work for, I don't remember which shop he worked for, motion graphics photographer. So a lot of Cinema 4D.
Nice.
A lot of photography. It's just really, really good content. It's all free, great videos. DigitalTutors.com. Their curriculum is literally Maya, Max, Photoshop, Cinema 4D, you name it. They have ZBrush, they have everything. Nice. So there's FX PhD, which is really hardcore, where it's much more expensive, but really the best people in the industry training all these, and it's 101, 201, 301 for editing, film production, you name it. So there's probably 20 that I literally watch daily. I mean, I try and follow and stay, I have to stay on top of this stuff. So
you have to stay current. That's for sure.
And in terms of the question of whether or not school is involved, you mentioned something to me that I found fascinating, which was that you're a furious learner.
Right.
That you will immerse yourself into a topic and kind of not come out of it for weeks at a time.
To my girlfriend's dismay.
That happens. Relationships suffer because of that. I understand.
She's a producer for a living for a web shop, so she kind of gets it.
She gets
but I don't think she likes it.
Yeah. Well, no, but that aside, let's talk about it. That
aside, yeah, I think that's my talent. It's not any of these different things that I do. In fact, I have to work hard to look like I'm good at these things. It doesn't come naturally. My talent, I think, is that I learned early that to really get something, you have to absorb the fundamentals, right? Spend a few weeks only thinking about that one thing, read everything you can, every book you can find about how it came to be, who the pioneers were, how they came to be, why it is.
I think that's a really good point. I mean, ultimately, it's about you as an individual, how much you're willing to just go in there, and if you don't know anything, just, learn as much as you can and just get it done,
I remember, this is 10 years ago. I had a question. Actually, more than that. It's almost about 11 years ago. 10 years ago, I had a question from a client, and as I'm talking to the client, I was Googling it. And actually I found the answer, so I'm like, oh, yeah, that's what it is.
Google's great.
I'm the smartest guy in the world. Ari, one of the things that we talk about is, whether or not we, how quickly can you find answers to some of the solutions. And I see a lot of people get flustered. So have you used lynda.com?
Oh, yeah. We use Lynda. We use it for the company owns an account, and we use when we have we only have a few people, but occasionally we bring extra people in to work in house, and we use it if they need to learn something or if we have downtime, put them on Lynda. Teach them about something else. So interns, we had an intern from Art Center, and so
how do they do?
She did pretty good. You know, it was nice to have her. She was really fun. So yeah,
So you had her for entertainment, or she was doing work?
Well, I mean, she did good work. I think she sort of shadowed our creative director, and he would be comping on, say, Hyundai's site, and he would let her sort of mock comp her own version of what he was working on, and they would sit and talk about how that works.
That's good.
Yeah, I think it was really good. She got to learn about Flash and 3D and sound. And
so let's talk about what you do. And you do Flash, you do 3D, you do design, you do technology. Give me what does a day in Scott's life look like?
Well, a day is usually probably 20% Flash. Although, you know, lately I haven't been doing as much Flash. I've been a lot of time in back-end server-side stuff, Django, Python, working on HTML5, right? That's the big buzzword. But really diving in and see if I could push it to what I can do with Flash, because I'm not one of those people that is hating on Flash yet. I still think it's incredible.
It's a great technology.
And I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I'll just say that I browse the forums and people are like, oh, and I could do anything you can do with that. And in one aspect, they're right. They can do a lot of the things I can do, but they can't do it at 60 frames per second. And they can't do it with all the sound and all the other stuff. I mean, we're close. We'll get there, and I'm glad it's being open source, pushed by millions of people. But let's get real about what we can do right now still, because there's still great work to be done inside Flash.
Absolutely.
I agree. And what do you think about the Arcade Fire video?
I love it.
You know, that was
I mean, that's fantastic. These are creative executions that they leveraged what's possible, and like maybe what they're not trying to compete with Flash. That wasn't a Flash kind of site. That was a totally new thing, and that's what's great about HTML5. We shouldn't be trying to. I don't like it when I see people try and push HTML5 only to reproduce what they could have just done in half the time with better polish in Flash, right? And now, because HTML5, it's all, you know, we have to use hashtags for all the URLs, right? They have the same SEO issues that we have with Flash, right? Which is that, well, not essentially. There's text on the page, which helps, but all the URLs now we have to use the same hacks we had to use for Flash to to deep link, right? So we took 10 steps forward with the technology for like data, right, and just for like pure server-side speed, and 10 steps backward in creative.
And the dynamic and the creativity.
Right.
So back to the question, which was, what do you do? It's okay. What do you get? What do you do on a day-to-day basis? And if you look at your portfolio now, we're at the 12-minute mark, and I would like us to get to starting to see some of the work you brought for us to share. Share with us some of the stuff that you worked on and that you really like, and walk us through your process. You know, what did you bring for us today?
Okay. Well, the first thing I'm going to show, I brought our first website we ever launched. It's our portfolio site from 2006, which I miss because I think it's one of our best pieces of work, and it's for a good reason, because, you know, a portfolio site's hard to produce, right? Client work is easy. There's a deadline, and we have one goal. Let's do what the client needs, right? So internally, what's our goal? I don't know. What are we? I don't know. We're a new company.
Plus, we're too attached to it.
Right. How are we different? Like, are we, are we trying to look cool? But we are cool. Well, I don't want to look cool. Let's make so we kicked around a lot of work internally. Jimmy, my partner, is an incredibly talented designer, and so he would comp stuff, and I'd look at it, and then I'd say, oh, what about this? And then he'd get mad and say, you're crazy, that's wrong, and then 5 minutes later he'd say, oh, maybe that's okay, maybe you're onto something. And so we kick a bunch of work back and forth. We spent 3 weeks designing probably, and then we finished the design, and then I essentially just took it over and just built it and animated it and did all the sound. So,
so one thing, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, one thing that I've heard over and over again is, and you have 3 partners, it's 4 of you guys, creative, tech, you do kind of a bit of both, and then a producer. And you guys were, before you started Bad Assembly, you were the team, one of the key integral teams of New York-based Big Spaceship here in LA, which I also respect, and I really
love those guys.
So shout outs to Big Spaceship for all the great work. And the time they had an office here in LA, you guys were doing that, and then you did Bad Assembly. So the question relative to that is that the team needs to really respect each other to do this back and forth kind of exquisite corpse style, kind of like, hey, you started, you finish it, and that's really important. So it sounds like you guys really, really respect each other.
Right. Yeah, I think it was obvious in the beginning. We started at DNA before Big Spaceship even.
So for those of you who don't know, who are watching, DNA was an agency here in LA who focused a lot on rich media, films. When I was the creative director of Racerfish LA, they kicked our ass on
movie sites?
The pitch for Harry Potter.
Oh, that was before me.
I was doing the pitch on our end, and I came in with an extremely smart global campaign, around what the possibilities were that you can do for the users.
Sure.
Of course, they came in with 3D trains, and
that's what happens.
they kicked our ass.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of the background. So going back to
Right.
the portfolio site, which I know is a challenge to do.
Sure. So anyway, at DNA, we learned early on that we work hard, right? So there's no cheating what we do. You either do your job or you don't. So I knew in the beginning, Jimmy's a great designer. Nathan's an incredible programmer. We work crazy hours. I don't have to question them. We know what our work ethic is, right? So we trust each other. I know that when they hand stuff off to me, I'm going to go crazy and I'm going to obsess about it. I'm not going to be able to sleep about it. It's just who I am. I know that's what they're doing over there. Even if the first 2 years or 3 years together, we worked apart. We barely saw each other, even once a month. But it was all on the phone and all online, and we would just hand files back and forth. So our clients didn't know that, and we weren't telling them that. That's the way it was.
That's awesome. You guys are extremely 21st century.
Right.
So show us the portfolio site.
Okay,
what does it look like?
so this is the original site. It was a full screen Flash sort of extravaganza with a. You can't hear it, but there's a crazy score that's looping. And
bring the volume up a little bit, so that we can all hear it here in the room at least.
Yeah, I can lean into it, but.
So it sounds a bit like a deep, space.
It's sort of, I'll say that when I score things, I know it's good if I can sit and listen to it for 12 hours, which is what happens when I'm working. I'll tab away, and it will just live open. And I like to make things that are sort of hypnotic a little bit, that just sort of bedrock for the sounds that are going to get layered on top. It's just got to be a solid foundation that's sort of moving, so that because you don't want it to calling itself out, you just want it to be subtle and cool. So this has some cool sound like that, and Jimmy did these really awesome illustrations, and I did some little After Effects and I think 3ds Max little flying things. All of this really means nothing. We're not saying anything. It's just we wanted to present sort of our quirky young attitude. We weren't trying to be corporate, we weren't trying to be anything necessarily. So that's the homepage. From there, Jimmy built this nice grid. And remember, this is 2006, so it might look a little dated by today's standards. But the interaction is all fun, and I think when I animate, I really like to. I would probably sit and stare at this before I started animating, just staring at the image for 30 minutes. Because I really animate in my head before I animate in Flash.
Totally.
A lot of people do storyboards and stuff. I don't do any of that.
All in your head.
It's all in my head. Recently, I've decided to start penciling a little bit, but
so let's have that argument.
Yeah.
So we just did. You art directed or creative directed for the group a project where we storyboarded pretty extensively,
right?
Or at least, but we didn't storyboard the animations per se. What we storyboarded was the interaction, where all this stuff was, and why to get the client to.
I think a big part of it was that there was a team that was working remotely.
So we had multiple team members.
We do that too. We do we do wireframe. Obviously, we need to get sign off before we're going to go and start building something.
Right.
But internally, we'll probably wireframe the major components and agree on things. But as far as how things move
in between each other
and between transitions,
we do
right?
The same,
so. He handed me static comps, and I look at these things and think, well, where does this grid come from? Why is it there? Where does it go when I go somewhere else? And so I really believe in sort of organic animation. I like things that have elasticity, and I'm not into just in, out, fade.
Totally.
Everything has to touch each other, and it's all connected. And so you'll see in all the transitions, everything moves. Every element on the screen is connected to the next thing that comes in, and there's all very really high level. We really believe in functional UIs. It's not just about click, go. You can use your scroll bar here to go back and forth.
Show us an example of that. If we bring your screen back up, what would that look like?
So I'll go to
explain what that means.
So as you see, when I leave the work page, and I'll go back.
And also your current site is pretty awesome. So even in your
current
site,
I think we can get to that too. But, so you see that everything is animated with code here. There's nothing that's done by hand. Although no, I take that back. There's some things done here. The copy effects, I couldn't do that with code. We really needed to just keyframe some things. So all the transitions between this copy, this masking stuff, and all the transitions that's all done by hand. But everything else is literally handled by code. And that allows me to build a site that scales properly, right? So this site looks great on all browser sizes and centers perfectly in every view. And so that's it. It was a simple site, but this one as an FWA, it drove tons of traffic. I mean, this got published in a book. It was just, you know, it was good because it was our first portfolio site. And
so a takeaway for our audience, when you're going to do your portfolio site, do an amazing job.
Yeah, blow your own mind, right? You have to really love your, like, don't care. It's not about anybody else. Like, we didn't care about what you guys were going to think about this. We just internally we know we have decent taste. Like we've worked a long time, so we know the level we have to be. And so we have to be willing to sacrifice to build what we know is awesome.
So build it for yourself.
Right.
Like, what would you love to see?
Right. That's all you can do.
So show us compare that to the current site, which is a few years after that. And
right. This is our more grown-up version of our site.
Wordy Fresh. Thank you for the comment. To show the site. Here it is.
Right. So. This is our, we recognize the trends in Flash leaving, right? So, and we also recognize that last site was not the easiest to update. It wasn't terrible, but we wanted something that was quicker, had a CMS backend, and it was easier to maintain, and had Twitter. Like, we literally updated our news maybe once a year on the old site. It was just, we were working, it just. You could be bothered to do that.
And that happens when you're small. How do you really maintain this, marketing push?
And trying to own a business and you go from just a creative to a business owner is
That's
a difficult
big
task.
Right? Totally different show.
Totally different show.
So show us a little bit of the. I want to see what is the best out of the stuff that you brought for us. What would you say is the best example of what you can really do? 3D, etc. I know you brought other case studies, but we have 9 minutes.
9 minutes. Okay, so. I'll show the latest work that we did, although we didn't design that, but it's a good thing to talk about that.
Well, let's talk about
that's part of the pipeline, right? A lot of the work we do, clients come to us with designs, they need our help, right? So we're small, so we could be hired guns, right? We can come in and do everything.
I'm an agency, I say, Scott, bad assembly, I need to assemble, these ideas and these concepts.
Yeah, so then we can come back to our shop and kick their designs around and maybe say, maybe you guys should think about this, because not everything we get is amazing, right? It's we do get good design work in, but we're super critical too because that's what we do.
And there's holes in it, and what ad agencies seem to like. This is what I've experienced, and it's that they bring the concepts to the table. Their expectations that you're the expert and you fill in some of the holes. Have you experienced that?
A lot. They're looking for a creative partner basically. So it's not for you to do everything. Sometimes they have something that they need help with. They need you to fill a certain role, and it's up to you to kind of be really humble about it and just help them get to the next level.
You said something important. The humble.
You better be humble.
Here's the thing here's the worst thing you can do. This is horrible.
Yeah.
No, we can do a lot better than this. Are you serious? You're gonna make us work on this? That's a bad idea.
This design is crap.
Don't do that.
Unless you want no clients.
Exactly.
It's a fine
Word
idea,
gets around. That's for sure.
That's the bottom line.
You can't be a jerk.
Don't be a jerk. That if there has to be one thing I could say in this whole industry is that there's a talent. There's people working that aren't amazing that are incredibly great human beings that make it very far, right? So it's not all talent. It's all about how you work with people, how you treat your clients. Are you willing to put in extra hours to make them look good to their bosses because they like that?
They like that. Right? So show us the
right. So I think this is a good one because this, they came to us. This was for a campaign for Scion. There was a huge broadcast component that they were working on that had this crazy 3D. Attic was working. I think Attic
worked on some of the campaign, right?
Right. I know Attic. I'm not sure if they did the broadcast spot, but they had this whole beautiful city that the car was sort of driving through the city, and the city was changing all around. And the commercials are still on TV now. It's the Scion take on the machine. So they came to us. They had this great idea for a site. They had comps, but they needed us to kind of gel it all together and build.
Can you play that full screen
so
while we're talking about it?
In fact, the site's live.
Let's go to it.
We'll just check it out. So the first thing you'll see is this. This is the intro that I did. Oops.
And talking about the 3D a little bit in terms of so they had a look already, and you had
this. They had this. This is their comp, and it's great. And they had a look. They used some of the imagery from some of the spots they got to rebuild this view of the city because they didn't really have this shot, so they sort of mocked this shot up, and so they did a really good job. They needed an introduction that sort of met where the broadcast left and where the site starts. So that's what that little 4-second spot is, sort of driving in and then flying into the city, and then we pull down into the city. Well, that spot took, we did probably 2 weeks of pre-production on a 4-second spot. That's what you have to be willing to do, right?
Totally.
I lived in that spot for a month.
For a month, yeah.
For that 4 seconds, right?
It looks great.
It's cool.
What is the URL so that folks can go to
it's Scion.com/takeonthemachine.
So can you also show us a little bit of the inside of the site? So the navigation, the transitions.
Yeah. So we have this cool, this cool way of showing the different car angles, and this was tricky because it's chugging a little bit on my computer. But the way this site works is we wanted to transition to these really static shots, but we didn't want to just fade. Right?
You wanted the whole.
I think I originally had done a fade, and my partner was like, "That's not really good enough."
Right.
And I was like, "What do you mean? It's perfect." And so he pushed me to do something better, and he helped me with the transitions, and we did. So in After Effects, we did this cool transition where it sort of morphs between the car and all the shots.
And then you got the static. You put in the screen.
Yeah, we exported. But the crazy thing is, if I showed you the back end, I can leave these shots. I'll send you to a gallery view. All these shots move down again, and then this Away 3D gallery sort of comes up. So we had to output multiple versions of every transition from every angle, and I had to code the system. It figures out which angle you're at and which to pre-cache and bring to you. And all that. So it was a lot of work.
So the pre-production logistics, and my experience has been in doing extensive when doing Flash sites and when doing things that are a bit complex in its form factor, meaning 3D, etc. Is that you really have to plan things out like a film. You're doing a film for all practical purposes.
I was working on film.
The fact that you click on things and that it kind of transitions is a very different thing.
Right.
And something that you mentioned earlier, and I want to actually highlight because I want to show a clip about something that one of the things that as a creative you likely face is the idea that you get ideas brought to you, but how do you participate with the agency sometimes in the ideation process?
Right.
And one of the challenges that I've seen, my experience only with the agencies, is that they themselves are struggling to define digital strategies.
Right.
So there's the issue of a product catalog like this is, where you're looking at the cars, you're looking at angles, then there's campaigns, there's all these things. And one of the things that I have found is that for us as creatives, the more versed we are on the strategic and on the how do we help them, service their end customers, which is not only the client. So not the agency has the company, in this case Scion, but Scion then has its consumers.
Right.
So everybody's on the hook. You got to make everybody look good.
Right.
And one of the ways that I've seen that is how do you know it by applying some user experience basics. Like who the users are at the end of the day, what do they need, how to make it easy for them, etc., and how to share that and make it simple for the agencies. And I'm going to invite you to come to this. Because we're doing a workshop at the end of this upcoming month, at the end of April, for that, where it's 2 days during the weekend for creatives to do it really visual, creatives and developers, and you do both. So I want to run this very short 1.5-minute clip about that. So that we can invite our audience and let them know that what are you doing on the end of the month, on the 30th and the 1st, the 30th of April, 1st of May. You're here? Okay, so you're coming.
I'll be there.
It's downtown at the group offices. Let's run that clip and show it to Scott.
Part 1 is Inception, where we define your brand, your users, and your goals. Based on these 3 factors, we are able to determine what you need to build and the direction you need to take. Part 2 is Execution, where we architect, design, and build. We will show you how to create valuable user experiences through information architecture and visual design. Part 3 is Launch. We will teach you how to plan your launch, how to manage your back-end development team, and what to do after launch to ensure adoption and monetization. These workshops will be taught in a dynamic, hands-on way with easy-to-understand workbooks, team exercises, real-world case studies, and topic experts coaching you throughout the day. We will be looking at this from a business, creative, tech, and marketing standpoint.
So I want you guys to, again, to go to groupschool.net and check that out. If you watch this show, we're going to give you a pretty substantial discount. TWI Web Design. It's the same as a hashtag. It's the code TWI Web Design, groupschool.net. Scott, so take us out with some, show us something that I think, again, visual. Our audience is very visual. What can we...
Right. I think this is a good one to show. This was a campaign we worked on for Scion, for Prius.
Prius.
We built... And I don't know if you can see my screen now, but we built this back-end and front-end solution for this application. We did these ad units, right? So you could sort of draw a tree, and the Scion would sort of drive in the tree. So we built and designed these motion graphics that lived on Times Square, that they would draw on the phone and would literally come in on all these screens you can see.
Cool.
We did that whole thing that sort of lived in Times Square. And
wow,
we built
that's
this,
super cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a super high-profile project. We had to build this moderation system so that, because the first thing people are going to draw when they get is not what you want them to draw.
They're going to draw some...
Right.
Right. So, yeah, I think that, we get to work on all kinds of fun stuff like that.
Very cool.
That one was a lot of fun.
That's a super cool project, and it's not everybody that gets to work on that.
Right.
Very few people are going to get to work on such cool things. What would you say to a young creative or tech person or creative tech person that has the goal of becoming you, of doing the cool type of work that you do?
Yeah.
What advice would you give them, aside from don't go to college?
Work hard. I mean, the only advice is if you love it, do it. There's literally nothing stopping you from just doing it. It's literally hours in the day. There are enough hours to do all of these things, I know, because I do them. So that's it. Just you can't cheat. Put the hours in. If you love it, do it.
Right.
So you have to put in the 10,000 hours. Ari, what would you say?
I'd say just be passionate about it.
Yeah.
You know, just find what you love and just stick to it.
Yeah. Right.
So don't let anybody tell you that, hey, you can't make a living making drawings and
How would they know?
How would they know?
Sure.
They haven't done it.
And your parents know what you do?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think they have a better idea now. Probably watching this.
That's funny. You know, I still get that question from my
Right.
mom sometimes, like, oh, is this what you do?
Right.
Like, yeah, it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
So we get paid to draw with computers
Right.
and to program stuff and to do 3D.
To play.
To play on behalf of Prius and in your case, Prius and who are your other clients? Scion.
But TV Guide, History Channel. So we get paid to do the fun stuff we were going to do even if they're not paying us. So that's the point, right?
So if your parents who are watching this and your kids are creatively inclined, let's put it this way, they have a better chance of having an amazing career, making a lot of money, which I know you guys make, and I know that you make, Ari, specifically, and we all make, comparative to the $30,000 a year that you can make, working at a regular job. If you're a parent, this is actually probably the place to go.
It is.
There's such high demand,
Right.
like right now, and even for our clients, there's too much work and not enough supply of talented designers and talented technologists, and more importantly, talented people who know how to speak all the languages.
Right.
You speak tech, you speak strategy, you speak advertising, you speak all these things that only someone who's been doing it for 16 years plus like you have can do. And again, either you can go somewhere like Group School and learn it, you can learn it on Google and looking at all the sites you mentioned, and thank you for sharing those. Or, you can go get a job being a lawyer. No offense, lawyers are awesome.
We all have them.
We all have them, yeah. But we have them.
Right.
I mean, it's an interesting thing. It's coming to, I think, an age where creatives and tech folks, it's clearly that we're on top.
Right.
Where should people go to work to look up more of your work?
Badassembly.com.
Badassembly.com.
That has everything. Badassembly, I think at Badassembly on Twitter, and you can follow me at Scott_Baggett on Twitter.
Awesome. So badassembly.com, and thank you so much, Scott, for
My
joining
pleasure.
us and for your time. I know you're super busy and on deadline. Next week, we have an amazing guest. We're equally amazing to Scott. It's going to be a pretty cool show. We're going to talk about mobile with the CEO of Social Stay, Seth Epstein. It's going to be cool because we're also going to talk about motion graphics and his transition into the world of digital and of mobile. It's going to be a pretty cool show. Go to groupschool.net. Check it out. I want to see you at the end of April at this workshop at our offices. See you next week.